Hey students, welcome to the third video in our resume series. So in this video, we're going to complete the resume section by covering the experience section within the resume and writing bullets. So again, I'll remind you to check out the module resources, including several videos, including a Google-based video talking about their expectations for resumes, including how to use their XYZ bullet format, which is one of three that we'll talk about in this presentation today. Again, not about you, it's about them. So with work experience, we've touched on it a little bit in the previous video in terms of the format and structure of this. Again, for the dates that we're going to want here, we are going to want a start and end date for your work experiences. And if you are currently working in a role, we typically like to see the word present. Current is fine too, so you would have a start date, obviously no end date, and instead of the end date, you would say present. If you've had multiple jobs in one company, one thing I really want to show you here is kind of how this is done in this particular example in the beginning resume. You will see that you have the employer name just listed once, and then the position title that you're currently in, and then the position title that you were previously in, along with a month, year, start and end date. And again, this could be present if that's the case. So this is a good format to follow. That's why we provide the templates, because it's very simple. And I think that should be helpful for you to understand how to do at least the basics. And one of the things students sometimes will ask, and I mentioned this in the previous one with some of the other sections, which you would have some similar issues, is in which order should you place them? They should be most recent first, or what's called reverse chronological order, followed sequentially. If you have two jobs today, two separate companies, you list them both. And then the question is which one would you list first? It depends on the things that we spoke about in the previous one. The first of which is relevance to the job you're applying for. So if it's a job that is related to skills that you could easily transfer into the position, so let's just say you might be working part-time for an accountant, doing taxes or something like that, and you're an accounting major, and your second job is a part-time job working in food service, well, clearly you would put the accounting part-time job first, even if it's not the most recent one that you're working at, which will be one of the criteria as well. So the other one is the importance or scope of the role. So if you have two jobs, one's just to make money and the other one's a bit of a bigger job, let's say, you could use that criteria to place it first. Now again, I'm still talking about jobs that you're still doing or working today, or two jobs concurrently. And then the final one, if it really doesn't matter too much, then reverse chronological is the right way. And then, since you're both there, which one would you use of those two? The one that has the most recent start date would go first. So the shortest tenure would go first, followed by the longer tenure. So there's some options here. There's no hard and fast rule, but if it's more relevant, obviously move it up. Work experience in terms of the bullets. Now we're getting into the most important part of your resume, sharing how you are the best candidate for their role. Now most students are going to have a range of 2 to 4 bullets, even for an extensive role. We want to show the value you created in the role. And this is best done by using achievement-based language or quantitative information as much as possible. And we're going to discuss what that looks like shortly. For older roles, if you have multiple roles and you're starting to push on to page 2, those kinds of things, particularly if they're old part-time roles, maybe you're in Wilmington now and you lived in Raleigh and it was a summer job working at a pool, you have to decide whether or not you want to keep them. I would venture to say what you want to do is you just want to focus on your most recent couple of roles. Anything that goes way beyond that is not really necessary, and if it doesn't add value, that's the thing I always tell you, right? If it doesn't add value, then don't include it, very simply. If you have military experience, that's a different subject. And you have the choice of either blending it in as part of your work experience, or if it's substantial, you have leadership position, or it's something that you want to emphasize, what you could do is separate work experience from a separate experience section called military experience, and then place that either ahead of or after the work experience, depending on how you want to emphasize it. So it's an option for you. You could also insert an internship as a separate experience section too. So for instance, if you did an internship the previous summer, but you've been working part-time jobs since, you may want to put internship experience as a separate section and move that ahead of your work experience. So as I said, there's a lot of flexibility here, and if you have any questions, just reach out and ask. I'll be happy to sit down with you, look over your resume, and talk about what might be best for you. So we're looking for high context bullets demonstrating you are creating value for the organization you're working for. And I have students all the time that tell me, Arthur, I don't know how to write a bullet. I'm not really doing anything other than working at a restaurant. Well, you wouldn't be employed if you weren't creating value. We're not going to pay someone just to stand around. So you clearly are creating value for the organization. Otherwise, you wouldn't be employed there. So it's up to you, and perhaps you can discuss it with your boss, coworkers, to help you define what kind of value you're creating for the organization, so you can talk about the skills that you've learned and mastered and how those can be used in your job search. And this is going to be our best example to show how you can deliver value for them, because the things that we've delivered value for our employers in the past is going to be one of the best examples we can use to say how we're going to deliver value to our future employer. The more we talk about real life and not theoretical, it's going to land much, much stronger with the hiring manager. So as I said, quantitative information is the best. Accomplishments with numbers, using dollars saved, time reduced, those kinds of things are going to be what we're looking for. And so it could be reduced, increased. Obviously, it's the context. We increased sales, we reduced cost. And then you want to show from what to what, or a percentage. I know a lot of students don't have this specific information, and that's okay. You can go qualitative instead of quantitative and sort of write that same bullet as if you had the percentage in there. Essentially, you're just going to drop out the percentage. So you might say something, we increased sales by 20%. If you don't have the number, you could just say we increased sales significantly. So it's always better to have numbers to show context, but if you don't, you can compromise and use still a strong bullet. It just won't have the numbers in there. One of the things that we want to see very clearly, again, is the value you can bring to the company and to show you have the skills to do the job. So a resume bullet is going to start with a very strong action verb. And I'm going to mention the resources again here. There is a resource called 178 Resume Action Verbs. So if you get kind of stuck on using the same one, managed, responsible for, these really boring ones, use this resource to help you come up with some creative ones. But they should sound like your voice. Some of them are like you wouldn't use them in normal conversation, like maybe orchestrated or spearheaded. That might not feel like you. Don't use those, but there are other examples that you can use as well. So the key thing here is we want strong bullets. So instead of saying things such as, excellent communicator, we might say negotiated, influenced, advised. To be more specific, specificity is important. Instead of saying a team player, we could say I collaborated, partnered, united. You get the point here. So if you come up with a struggle to find one to replace something that's simple and you want to make it sound a little stronger, again, go back to the resources, because we really don't want weak phrases that water down your responsibilities or create, a negative impression on your resume if you're using the same action verbs over and over and over again. The other thing is that, and where a lot of students really struggle with and why this bullet thing is important is because a lot of the bullets that are in standard resumes, and it's not just students, it's resumes from, I just reviewed a resume not too long ago with an executive who was looking for a vice president position, and their resume looked exactly like what I would consider a mediocre student resume. So it's not you, it's everybody that wants to think about it, and they just don't understand the purpose of the resume, and that's the whole point. The final thing I'll leave you with is making sure you never lie or embellish on a resume. Everything on your resume is a source for a possible question. So if you have it on your resume, you better have a good story for it, otherwise you will definitely get caught out. So the three formats we're going to talk about today, we're going to start with the what, how, why format. This format is pretty easy to use. That's why I start with it. It's basically a three, and all of these actually are three-step, and they're very similar in terms of what they're trying to achieve. But sometimes, the what, how, and why method makes more sense for one person. For another person, the Google XYZ method might make more sense to them, which is why I offer these three methods to, basically find one that resonates with you, that sounds good to you, and use that. So in the what, how, why, this is really pretty straightforward. So we're going to describe the specific task or responsibility we had, what we did to complete the task or overcome the problem, including what methods or tools we used. And then the why is the result or the purpose of your actions. How did it benefit the organization, the project, the customer, the supplier? That's the key thing that we're looking for. And the one thing that you should always think about, and one other reason why I like this format, is because your resume bullets should always have a why in it. Why did you do that? Right? So then why, the why is going to be how the stakeholder benefited from your actions. So an example of this would be developed a new filing system by categorizing documents by type and date, which reduced retrieval time by 50%. So as I said, if you don't know the 50%, just leave it off. So the final part of it would read which reduced retrieval time for the team, something like that maybe. Again, you don't have the percentage, but it still can be a strong qualitative bullet even if it isn't quantitative. So let's break it down a little bit further. So in this method, again, we talked about what did you do, how did you do it, and why did you do it. Okay, so we'll highlight these and for our example purposes. So instead of saying we increase social media by making posts, which is actually a bullet that I took off of a student resume, we would say something like increase social media following by 34% through creative graphic design and photography to raise brand awareness and customer engagement. Now again, we could even add a percentage for the customer engagement, which increased customer engagement. Actually, we have it in here now that I say that, right? So the 34% is the percentage. And as I said before, if you don't have it, just drop it. So it'd be increased social media following through creative design and photography, right? So the 34% adds a ton of information and value, but you could leave it off and it would be just fine. The Google XYZ format is the next one, and this one is quite popular, particularly among tech people and those who have strong quantitative jobs. So those jobs that are strong in numbers or have KPIs, key performance indicators or metrics that are very, very numbers focused. And in this format, you're going to start with an accomplishment or task you completed. You're going to quantify the outcome or impact, and you're just going to describe the actions you took to achieve the result. So again, it's a little bit, or not a little bit, it's very similar to the previous one, right? But it's structured a little bit differently. And as I said, it might feel a little bit more natural for you to say it this way. So in this case, we're going to show increased social media engagement by 30% as measured by the number of likes and shares by creating and implementing a new content strategy. And again, if you leave off the 30%, increased social media engagement as measured by the number of likes and shares it still reads okay. Again, the numbers make it more powerful. So using this as an example, so we have our example here of managed sales for consumer goods, which isn't that great. The improved version, not the XYZ yet, would be increased regional sales by 10% by introducing a new consumer goods product line. That's still better, but it really doesn't show a whole host of things that we can say in these bullets. So this one is going to be the one that is going to be the best. Boosted regional sales of consumer goods by 10% within 1 year by leading and targeted social media campaign and forging partnerships. So you can see how each of these bullets improve upon each other, and the more you're able to adhere to the format, the stronger generally a bullet will be. The APR format, again, not that different. This case, we're going to identify our action, which is identify the thing that we did. The context of the bullet, which is the project or the problem. So we're going to state that for which we performed this action. And then, of course, ultimately and always, we have the why or the results. So we're going to highlight the result of our actions. So in this case, it's led a team of 5 to develop a marketing campaign for a new product launch, resulting in a 20% increase in sales within the first quarter. So that gives you the third one, and let's go through what that might look like in another example. So the original bullet that we would have that I pulled off of a student's resume is completed case studies in business classes. So now we're going to break it down and create a much more stronger bullet. So what this case is the action verb, what we did, we analyzed. And then the project was business case studies, conducted root cause analysis, and presented strategic analysis recommendations to professors and classmates, resulting in strengthening skills in business communication and strategic thinking. Notice in this case, we do not have a numbers-based one. So the rewritten one is going to look like this. We analyzed business case studies, conducted root cause analysis, and presented strategic recommendations to professors and classmates, strengthening skills in business analysis, communication, and strategic thinking. So this bullet is, again, far, far better than the original, the one that we had, because we're showing the results, right? We're showing the things that we learned from this in this particular case. And this might be a good bullet style to use in your relevant coursework instead of just kind of listing what you did in the class, to kind of give an understanding of not only what you did in the class, but what you learned from the class, which is actually far, far more important than what you studied. It's what you learned. So kind of to summarize, if you don't have much data, I've shared with this already, qualify it if you can't quantify it. How did your actions play in the overall success of the department of the business? What impact did your actions have on your department or your customers? What did your actions allow to happen? So in other words, if you didn't do this, what were the consequences? So the opposite of that is by doing this, you allowed other things to happen further on down the line. And then also, sometimes you're a catalyst for change. So maybe we would show something in there that maybe you decided that, you thought you could make an improvement in the food preparation process, for example, that allowed things to get staged much faster so that you were able to serve customers more quickly. That's a way of thinking about this as well. And so again, if you don't have much experience, you can ask yourself some questions. You can also use ChatGPT or generative AI to help ask yourself some questions about what you did. But think about, have I trained anyone? Did I handle cash, which is a significant responsibility in a part-time position in particular? Was I responsible for customer service and handling customer issues? Was I responsible for social media? A lot of students get involved in organizations to help organizations in marketing and their social media presence. Has your supervisor or boss recognized you for your skills? Did you ever receive an award, employee of the month, employee of the week, things of that sort? Have you been given extra responsibilities because of your success at the job? Are you now a key holder? Do you open and close the business? As I mentioned, did you handle cash, and do you take that cash to the bank or something of that sort? And then other skills that you may have learned in the role. So Excel or other technology or software that you have to use in that organization. Maybe if you're in accounting, maybe you learn how to use QuickBooks. Those are the kinds of things that we would want to see in your resume that are going to be definitely transferable to roles that you'll be looking at in the future. So this comes from our example resume, and you can, not our example, not our templates, but some of the examples that come with the UNCW Career Success Center and the resume examples they provide. So this is two really nice resume summaries in the experience section for a server and for a child care provider. So again, we talk about students who don't feel like they've done much. This gives you, kind of a way of expressing that when you do have these positions, you do create value for the organization or the people you work for. So, think about that, use these examples, use some of the ones that we've shown you. You definitely are adding value, you definitely are creating opportunities, and you're definitely learning skills and attributes that will be very valuable in the workplace. You just have to realize it and then be able to translate those things that you're doing into those things that you can do for an organization. And that will also help you then start to create your stories that you need to be able to share to demonstrate your ability to deliver value in the interview process. ChatGPT and generative AI. So when I say ChatGPT, first of all, make sure, I'll have a slide here in a moment, but make sure you understand I'm not just talking about just ChatGPT. And in fact, there are many other tools and I use them, and I'll share that in a second. But you definitely can use this to help you write more effective resume bullets. So in this example, the information that is in the prompt here. So this is the prompt section of ChatGPT. This information here was actually taken from a student resume and their first draft, and they wrote this in. I changed Canvas services, but otherwise it's written exactly the same as that came off the resume. And obviously this is not, well, maybe not so obviously, but this is not what we want to see. We want to see much stronger bullets. So what I asked Chat to do was change this text into more effective resume bullets, try to add accomplishment-based text as appropriate. Now this is a very non-specific prompt for generative AI, but the thing about generative AI, there doesn't have to be a specific prompt. We'll talk more about using these tools here in a second and on a couple of other examples, but also take a look at the video and the AI use cases for job search and kind of understand a little bit more about prompting in that video. So as we put this in there, we gave it this information as is, and this is the output that came. And it's not, it's so much better than what was written. Can we do better even than on these? Yeah, I think we can, but honestly, moving from point A to point B in this and the 4 bullets it generated for that, it's excellent progress from where it is. And this is the kind of thing that Chat can do for you, Chat and other tools can do for you, because it can help kind of break through a mental block. Oh yeah, I know what Arthur means, but I can't think of how to write it. Well, go to this tool and it will help you significantly. Now, 2 things. First of which I want to say is the language. If this resume and the bullets that are written here don't sound like you're writing, rewrite it. Absolutely rewrite it. Now, we do give a bit more leeway to resumes because resumes need to be written in a certain way, and it doesn't sound sort of like natural tone of voice or the words that you may use, and that's okay. But it can't be a million miles off either. The other thing is you've probably heard the term that generative AI and these solutions, they hallucinate, which means they make up information. And you can see that that can happen very easily here. Nowhere was the 20% reduction in retrieval time mentioned in that previous bullet. And in this new bullet that Chat created, it says, hey, we resulted in a reduction in retrieval time. So it does make up information to fill it in. However, as I said, if you're going to rewrite this and it actually did result in making a reduction in retrieval time, then change the number to something that you feel is accurate and you would be able to explain in an interview response. Otherwise, just drop the 20%. It just sounds fine otherwise, resulting in a reduction in retrieval time. That still sounds pretty good. So the different tools that we're going to use here are here, Chat GPT, which is this big logo here, Gemini, which is the former Bard made by Google, Claude 3, which I actually like quite a lot. It is by a company called Anthropic. And Copilot over here is the Microsoft product that comes with the Microsoft Office suite of products and used to be, what was it called before? Well, not so important. And then the final one is Perplexity. Perplexity is an interesting one. That is, I use it a lot for, basically it's used a lot when I used it to replace Google search in many ways. It's a generative AI solution that has real-time access to the internet, and I think it does a nice job of searching and providing citations to the resources it's pulled from. So, I think it's really good in that respect. So these tools have very different pros and cons. If you're going to do writing, I would say that you want to stick with ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini predominantly. Copilot's pretty good. Perplexity is pretty good. You don't have a major step change down, but I do feel that the big boys are the ones that are the better writers, generally speaking. In addition to that, each of these have free versions and paid versions. The paid versions generally work better than the free versions. That's by design, of course. You just need to start playing around with these and figuring out which one works best for you. And I would recommend that you treat these AI tools as sort of your team members. You can use these tools to help you brainstorm ideas. You can use these tools to help talk through issues, even personal issues, believe it or not. And you can also use these to help break kind of mental blocks or roadblocks that you run into. These tools are great to give you information. Is the information accurate? No, it's not always accurate, and you do have to be careful about that. But otherwise, these can really help you, kind of be a team member, as I said, or I use it as, I call it my personal brainstorming partner. And so find one or two that you like for writing, one that might be good for searches, one for chatting in social situations. You can even use this to say, hey, I want to plan a party this weekend, create a menu for a theme for a party that I want to have. We're going to have a Lord of the Rings watch party, and I'd love to have a themed menu and easy to make decorations for the party. Something like that, believe it or not, you can put into chat and it will come out with some great ideas. All right, let's move on to taking a look at a resume from a student. So this is a mock-up of a resume that was done by a student in a previous semester. And of course, everything's changed to protect to anonymize the student as much as possible. So you can see this student has written a resume. They've used a template from online. This is not a horrible template, but the reason we know it's a template is because, quite frankly, students don't introduce this level of creativity normally when they submit assignments like this. Not to mention the fact that another student used the exact same template. So it was easy for me to figure that out. In this case, the student used a table to create their resume, which isn't best practice at all. We talked about tables and how they are read or not read by the ATS systems from companies. And although this one's written in such a way that it probably would be read okay, again, we're not really sure of the format when we download templates like this, and it's just not safe to use them. So in this case, you can see the education section here. One reason I like to include this is I'm so adamant about not including high school, and yet this one does have a high school, and I would include this one. But as I talked about exceptions before, in this particular case, this is a very unusual high school. It was a magnet school that was able to teach this particular student Mandarin Chinese and German, which is an odd combination. But at the end of the day, that was so unique that I think definitely it stands the test. And we said that you definitely should include it. But where we're going, of course, is the experience section. So here you can see, and you see Grammarly's kind of freaking out all over the place. All the red lines come from my use of Grammarly here. And but you'll see that this particular bullet is not a bullet at all. In fact, it could be 2 or 3 bullets or maybe 4 bullets. But instead it's just a paragraph of stuff. And you can see it's just literally a bunch of tasks. Assist managers with opening and closing procedures, placing designer jewelry in display, clean and organized products, etc. It's really not talking about the value they're creating, it's just the stuff that they do. And this is the reason why we want to use a tool like this to help us create bullets. We could do it ourselves, but a tool like Chat or Gemini or Claude will do a nice job of pulling this stuff together rather quickly for you. So again, should you use it? If you feel like you want to use it, great. If you don't, that's great too. But because obviously the format and structure we're talking about doesn't have to be used by ChatGPT or any of these other tools to be successful. In fact, these were all designed before all of these applications became available to us. So coming back to our different formats and how to write a prompt. So what we've got here on the next couple of slides are 3 prompts for each of these particular methods, and we're going to use these in a moment on that example that I just showed you. But what I wanted to do to come back here is just to show you that these prompts are all very simple to write. You just kind of have to basically think through exactly what it is you want. And in this case, we're going to want to improve a bullet. So the text is, I need help improving a resume bullet using the what, how, why format. Here is the current bullet. And then in green, you'll notice with the brackets, this is the bullets, managed social media accounts. So that's the example. Then you're going to write, please rewrite this bullet to be more specific and impactful by answering the following. And then you're going to take this kind of information or something maybe in your own words, but you can just obviously steal it from the slides that we have to talk about what the how, what, how, why method works. And then the example is manage social media accounts by creating engaging content and scheduling posts using Hootsuite, which increased follower engagement by 25%. Now again, notice hallucination, right? There was no 25%. So just make sure that you're not copying and pasting or, using information that is a lie or an embellishment. Similarly, the XYZ method, there's really not much difference here. You're going to use the exact kind of structure. You're just substituting the XYZ language here and then what the XYZ means below. And then you're going to insert your particular bullet. And this one's organized company events. So it rewrites it to say successfully organized 10 company events as measured by 90% employee satisfaction rate, ... So you get the point. The same with the APR method. Comes up with an example as well. Here we're going to be assisted with customer service. And again, it hallucinates. So just be wary of that as you start to get involved in all of this. Okay, now we're back and now we are in our browser mode and we have ChatGPT up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, that paragraph that wasn't in bullets and we're going to try to create some bullet points and see how Chat and these other tools use their prowess to create some interesting things for us. So let's take a look at this first of all. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use the what, how, why format. So this is the cut and paste from the bullet or from the presentation that we just had. And instead of that, we're going to just delete this. And what we're going to do is we're going to input this information here. So this is the language that came from that particular example, assist managers, ... right? So now This prompt, if you can see, I need help, that's the beginning of that. That's the text that we want. We're asking it to rewrite the bullet and the structure that we want. So let's see how that does for us. All right. So this is what one of the things you need to start to be wary of is that if you're not very specific about what you want, it will interpret what it thinks you want and give you the output. So what it did was it says, sure, I'll rewrite it, but you didn't tell it to write it in different bullets or separate the bullets. So it thinks that the paragraph format's okay. And what it does is it creates all of this from the bullets, if you will, that were kind of embedded in that paragraph. Right? But we don't really like this particular output because it really doesn't help us create the bullets, although we could just make bullets by separating the sentences, right? But what we're going to want to do here, let's try this, right? So as we've talked about, AI is a conversational tool. So if it doesn't give you what you want, you just ask it to redo it and see if it comes up with a better response this time. So in this case, what we're doing is we're going to now say, separate this into individual bullets for clarity. And there it goes. And now it's separating the individual bullets for us, and it's created, in fact, quite a lot of bullets. So again, hallucinating like crazy, 20% increase in online engagement, 50% rise in in-store traffic. Okay, yeah, we get it. You know, pay attention to the output. But now you can see, though, we're talking now about the why, right? Assisted managers with opening and closing procedures, ensuring smooth daily operations. Displayed designer jewelry creatively, enhancing visual appeal and attracting customer interest. Now, I hope you're starting to see the benefit of this style and how it writes it, and it makes it a much more impactful bullet, but that also talks about the value you're creating, right? You're creating customer interest, you're creating visual appeal, you're ensuring smooth daily operations. That's the purpose. That's what you're there for. You know, so these kinds of bullets are really impactful in lots of ways, but it will also maybe help you create more impactful stories for your interviews. So now that you know kind of the why, right? Managed inventory to ensure accuracy and availability of products. Those are kinds of things that now you can start to talk about, you know, not only did you just manage the inventory and put a period at the end of that sentence, but, you know, I managed inventory to ensure that we had enough inventory on hand so that our customers were able to take the stuff home instead of having to wait for it to be delivered to them. And our customers really appreciated having the materials or the products available that they could take home immediately. You know, that's a much better story than just say, oh yeah, I managed inventory. Yeah, huge difference. I think you understand that. So what we'll do now is let's run it in Claude. This is the free version of Claude, and that was the free version of ChatGPT. So let's see if we can, let's get back here and do the same one. I need help with this bullet using the what, how, why format. We're going to delete this. And we're going to input that previous statement that we had before, assist managers. Make sure that everything is the same, and it is. And now let's click on that. Let's see what Claude comes up with. All right, now what Claude did was it did basically the same thing that ChatGPT did, except in this case it writes it in such a way that it's talking about the what, how, why, and in this case I don't really appreciate as much the output as I did from Chat. So if we were to take a look at, see if we can get, see if we do this again, see if it does improve this at all for us. Okay, so again, the context and how it interprets our original prompt is different here. Here, it's thinking that was one bullet, and it's separating that one bullet into the what, how, why, as opposed to each individual sentence as an individual bullet, creating a what, how, why for that bullet. Now, I kind of ended up doing it anyway. So again, that's why we play with these tools. Sometimes it's better to run the exact same prompt into two tools to see which one will give you the best output. And that's also a good way just to learn about how these tools work and figure out which one might be best for you. But again, ultimately we're getting some good bullets. Assisted managers with opening and closing store procedures, ensuring smooth operations and adherence to protocols. Organized and display designer jewelry in a visually appealing and creative manner, utilizing merchandise techniques to enhance product presentation. maintain a clean and organized store environment by properly handling, packaging, sorting inventory. You get the idea. What you could do is use 2 tools or 3 tools and pick the bullets that you like and kind of massage the wording a little bit. Do some wordsmithing to make it sound a little bit more like yours, and then you have some really excellent bullets. Now we can do this in Gemini and we can do this in Copilot, but quite frankly, I'll leave that for you. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a demonstration of what this would look like kind of in real time with a resume that needed some work. All right, and this is the longest video that we've had, but hopefully you found it to be valuable. It contains a lot of good information and hopefully now a little bit of AI experience for you as well. All right, that's the end of the resume section. We're going to move on to the next one, and I look forward to seeing you there.